Day 51 to 6:23 a.m. Central Business Park, Bay City, Pasay City, Metro Manila. Dawn had come as the sun rose from the east. It marked the start of a new day. But of course, a new day cowering in fear inside the walls of the settlement of the infected outside was not that well appreciated. In the least, everyone was glad that they survived the past day and night without being food for the infected. It had been 3 days since the disaster where mission the military led to clear the infected nest in NAIA failed miserably. The number of casualties they suffered amounted more than the deaths they had for 2 whole weeks by 2 times, and it even included the number of deaths incurred during the mission in Philippine General Hospital. That was how serious the situation was back then. However, no matter what the reason was for the failure, the people with ill intent took advantage of the matter to saw the power and the support the military had. In this past day, rumors after rumors that denounced the military spread like wildfire. Despite the fact that none of the common people knew about who started to spread the rumors, their trust towards the military started to falter. It was the worst thing to happen since the military heavily relied on the manpower from the common people to maintain the most important things in the settlement, like manpower for construction. Not to mention that while the numbers of soldiers were being reduced after almost every mission, the number of combatants from the common populace was increasing. Every day, there would be people that would awaken their abilities as an evolver after falling ill with a high-temperature fever. Right now, if not for the firearms and equipment in the military's arsenal, the common populace could overwhelm the soldiers and take over the settlement just by the number of evolvers and mutators among them. Fortunately, that was yet to happen. Wishfully, it would never do. Now, the current power in Bay City started to tilt towards the factions of the politicians, especially the faction led by Senator Estrada. Fortunately, it was not all bad news that the military received in these past days. The next day the participants of the mission returned tired and dejected. They received good news twice until yesterday. Day 51 to 8:15 a.m. Recovery Ward, Military Laboratories, Bay City, Pasay City, Metro Manila. General Miguel Perez walked along the white halls of the laboratory towards the recovery ward despite his heavy schedule. He totally freed his morning and late afternoon schedules to visit the recovery ward these past 2 days. It was because of the first good news that they received. The Bay City's military princess, Angeline Perez, finally woke up from her coma. When she suddenly had a high fever after a month of being stable, the military entered a panicked state after learning about what was happening. It would not be a good thing to make the general experience more stress from what he was already having after the failure of the mission and the slander that started to spread around the settlement. Fortunately, her fever only lasted until midnight, and few hours after her fever receded, Angeline finally woke up. The general and his sons were overjoyed at the sudden good news. Unfortunately, there was no way for them to conduct a celebratory party for this event. "Dad," Angeline immediately called out when General Perez entered the room. She was currently walking around the room with the help of a walker and was being supervised by her elder brother's fiancé and her best friend. After more than a month of lying down on the bed, she needed to recuperate and practice her body to move around. Fortunately, her body was recovering strangely fast that she was already able to walk around, even if it was assisted with some tools just the next day after she woke up. "It's early in the morning and you're training your body already. You should sleep more." The general reprimanded his daughter. "Dad, I'm already fine. I already slept a lot, so I don't feel like sleeping too much now." Angeline joked, which made her father turn the 2 other women in the room, who only shook their heads in exasperation. It seemed that Angeline was being hard-headed and was doing things as she liked. "Dad, is there news about May?" Angeline asked, as she already heard about what happened in the failed mission in NAIA. It was one of the reasons why she was too hasty in recovering herself. Unfortunately, even though it was related to the second good news the military received, there was no traces of May or even those powerful people. The second good news that they received was the mysterious destruction of the infected nest in NAIA. Due to being close to Bay City, they managed to see the thick, almost black smoke that was rising in the sky the next morning. On the night of the day the mission failed, Several accounts of people with sensitive hearing said that they heard explosions during the evening. Due to the sudden signs, they sent several scouts back to the site to confirm what was happening despite how dangerous it was. When the scouts returned, they brought back the good but mysterious news that the whole nest was destroyed by a large fire. No one could fathom what happened, but in the least, the threat of the infected nest was no more. Unfortunately, the news was limited to that, and May's whereabouts was still unknown. The general started to spend his time with his daughter, chatting and laughing as he tried to forget the current state of the Bay City that was giving him too much stress. It was when Paula brought out the question regarding the good news that many people in Bay City was talking about and was kind of celebrated by them. That news was about a survivor group that suddenly went missing yesterday. "Uncle, we have several strange occurrences these past days, don't we? First, although it's not bad, Ange, who had not signs of waking up, woke up abruptly. That infected nest in NAIA suddenly got destroyed, and now, a group of survivors are Mia." The general sighed. He would not show this side of him to others, but here, he was free to do so. It might not be a good thing to say as a person, but it's good if that group will not return anymore. At least, I have less sources of headache to suffer from. We didn't really want to, but we still sent a search and rescue team just for saving face. It's more of the person who contracted them to do that, really. There, a warm embrace was given to the general that worked hard this past month. It came from his daughter that he longed to wake up. "Don't worry, Dad, after I fully recover, I'll help you straighten those kinds of people. You silly girl. Just behave and don't add another source of headache for me." Day 51 to 11:32 a.m. Harrison Plaza, Mabina Street Corner, Adriatico Street, Malate, Pasay City, Metro Manila. Led by First Lieutenant Rafael Perez, a group of armed soldiers were searching the mall infected by the infected as covert as possible. They were here for investigation and to locate the missing survivor group. If possible, make sure to make them return safely, even with the fact that the soldiers did not want any ties from that survivor group. Leo Troops was what that group called themselves. A group of arrogant scoundrels that was really good at throwing their power around. The worst part was that they were contracted by the business genius, Raver Guevara, who was among the faction that was benefiting the failure of NAIA mission the most. The Leo Troops were very unruly and always threatened those who was weaker and had lower status than them in Bay City settlement. And even though they were highly protected, some of the members of Team Fairy were subjected to their harassment, especially the girls in the group that were working inside the settlement. Unfortunately, the soldiers still had to do their job just for the sake of publicity. Their name was being dragged into the mud these past days, and they could not afford to have more things thrown onto them. "Sir, we found their vehicles," a soldier hurriedly returned and reported their findings. "All right, lead the way." Raphael readied his squad and made their way towards the location. There, they found several cars parked at the front of the mall which were totally the same vehicles Leo Troops had. "Men, search the area. See if there are clues to their whereabouts." "Yes, sir." It did not take long and the soldiers found traces that led to where the members of the group were. Soon they found them. The members of Leo Troops were either dead or turned into Z-type beta, commonly known as eaters. They were not just dead and infected, but they were all made to suffer in the most brutal ways. Their members were tied up and hanged at the central area of the mall. However, the electric cables that hanged them were not the cause of their current states, but the roaming infected beneath them. Their bodies were hanged in a height that the infected were able to reach and eat up to their waists. Right now, each of the members only had their torsos remaining that were still hanging from the electric cables and were attracting the infected below them. Raphael and his men could also not help but notice that some of the dead mutators of Leo Troops had their heads bashed open and their heads were left hollow. Their brains were missing. Looking at the wounds on their heads, it was very likely that their brains were removed after they turned into eaters after half of their bodies were eaten by the infected. As for the evolvers and normal members, they were left to become eaters that were forever tied up inside this mall brimming with the infected. As they found all the members of Leo troops, Raphael and his squad had no reason to stay. They took the armored vehicles and also took a number of pictures to bring back as evidence for the investigation. They immediately returned to Bay City to report what happened. Day 51 to 3:11 p.m. Central Business Park, Bay City, Pasay City, Metro Manila. They already returned, Mark said as he watched the vehicles entering the northern gates of the settlement. Right now, he was together with May in the open and was not concealing their bodies. Instead, they wore masks and protective clothing that was not really strange after the apocalypse started. These past days, the two mingled with the survivors around Bay City as common survivors. Due to the large number of people inside Bay City, no one suspected the two as they gathered information about which people they needed to pay attention to. Finally, he started his plans after gathering as much information as he could. He started with the Leo troops. These people were under Raver, which was one of the high-status individual in Bay City and someone who wanted May to fall onto his hands. Furthermore, the members of Leo troops harassed Elsa and Charmaine several times already according to May. Luckily, the group wanted some alcohol to drink and the military was strict about distributing alcohol from their stocks. Unless they took it outside the settlement, they would not have enough to indulge themselves. They never thought that that flimsy mistake of indulging in their desires led them to be the ones targeted first. As Mark watched the familiar vehicles enter the gates, he smiled as he played with the two new crystals in his hand that he managed to get from that arrogant survivor group. Let's go. Mark and May held hands and left the area. For sure, the news about what happened to the group would spread like wildfire. Of course, as the first case, the people in the settlement would only think that it was an unfortunate coincidence. However, it was just the start. Day 52 to 8:32 a.m. Tent City, South District, Bay City Settlement, Pasay City, Metro Manila. Early in the morning, a lot of people were lined up for the morning rations. Although it was just chicken-flavored rice soup that really did not have chicken meat in it and only had vegetables that were dried and powdered in it, a lot of people still lined up for the food. No matter what, it was still something that they could eat to fill up their growling stomachs. There were not a lot of varieties with the jobs in the settlement offered by the military. Most of jobs required hard labor or combat experience, and as such, many people were not able to join, especially the old, women and children. For those that had family members that were hired by the military, they had enough to get by day after day. The others, however, had to rely solely on the rations. For the women that were desperate, they would secretly offer themselves to those that were able to scavenge outside. Here is yours. Be careful, it's hot. Melissa handed a bowl of soup to an elderly woman. Thank you. The elderly woman smiled at Melissa before she left the line. Right now, Anna, Melissa, Charmaine, Elsa and Cielo were among the people distributing the rations. Hey Melissa, Anna, is there really no work for you two somewhere else? One is a nurse, the other is a cook. You two should leave this to us sisters. Charmaine asked. Normally, it was just her and her sisters while Anna was mostly behind the scenes as one of the cooks. Right now, however, the two were together with the three. What I'm going to do? Stay inside the clinic all day without doing anything. Melissa sighed. I rather get paid to work and not to laze around. People like Melissa who had clinical experience could get accepted into either the laboratory, the clinic or on field duty. As a nurse, the first option was a no-go as more experienced doctors and scientists were allowed there. Since she was not an experienced combatant, it was better if she did not join as a field nurse during missions. All she could enter was the clinic, which would only treat a handful of people every day. Since no one was getting sick nowadays due to viruses or harmful bacteria, all the people that had to get treated in the clinic were those that received wounds and physical injuries. Not to mention that it would only happen mostly after military missions. These days, the military were mostly staying since their manpower was severely weakened after the failed mission in NAIA. Due to that, Melissa had nothing to do but stare at the window these past days and decided to help out in the ration distribution. Anna, on the other hand, just joined in knowing that Melissa was also here. Charm, Don't bother about it too much, it's better that there's more of us here, it won't be boring. Elsa said to her sister, making the youngest, Cielo, nod in agreement. While the five chatted, they continued to fill the disposable plastic bowls with rice soup and handed the filled bowls to the people in line. What you girls think about what is happening these past days? Melissa suddenly changed the topic of the conversation. About the missing survivor teams? Charmaine asked. Yeah. I don't really think about it too much, me too. Cielo agreed with Charmaine. Right? It's really better that those people are not here. Even Elsa agreed and spoke with contempt. What's with that reaction? Melissa was confused. It was then that the next in line was a couple wearing masks and protective clothing. However, the girls were busy talking at each other that they did not pay too much attention. You're always in the clinic too, you don't know, but those survivor teams were the worst people. Is that so? Yeah, not only they act arrogant because they have the backings of powerful people. Many of them even tried to hit on us. If not for the soldiers guarding the place, they might have done more than just that. Their eyes are scary every time they look at us. Cielo, who also experienced the worst thing as a woman after the apocalypse started, could feel the ill intent of those people. Here you go. Please be careful. Charmaine smiled and handed 2 bowls of rice soup to the couple. All right, thanks. The man spoke before the couple turned around to leave. Still, it's kind of scary that 5 survivor teams had gone missing in just 3 days. That's about 60 people already. 2 of the teams had already been confirmed wiped out, and both teams seemed to have died in the same way. The military already started to suspect that whoever is doing this should be targeting the settlement. Many other teams were already hesitating to go out of Bay City, thinking that they might be next. I don't think it's that bad. There were others that came out yesterday but returned fine. Maybe I'm just thinking this, but the teams that were missing were those that had bad records. Really? Yeah, really. Right, Charm? Elsa turned to Charmaine just to see her staring at the couple that had just left the line with their bowls of rice soup. Charm? Finally, Charmaine turned back to the 4 other girls. However, sis, I'm just going to check something. Before the 4 could say anything, Charmaine ran off towards the exit of the distribution area. She was following the direction that the couple had left. The couple turned at the corner leading to an alley where Charmaine lost sight of them. She hurriedly ran and turned at the same corner, but where are they? Charmaine started to slow down as she could not see the couple anymore. She was facing a dead end. She thought that the couple decided to stop in this place to eat, but they were nowhere to be seen. Rather, there was no one in the alley at all. Charm, what's gotten into you? It's dangerous to move alone, you know, right? Elsa caught up to Charmaine. Sis, Charmaine hesitated what to say. Never mind. Let's return. Gerger, she looked dejected. May spoke as she watched Charmaine return to the distribution area with Elsa. It's still not the time for us to show up. I just wanted to try out eating that the people here eat. It's just a coincidence that we encountered them. At least, they were doing fine outside. Mark spoke. The girls looked good outside, but they were heavily impacted by May's disappearance. Their minds were in constant stress and their mood was rather sour. That was why they were trying hard to divert their minds into their work, just like what Melissa and Anna were doing. Baroom. While they were talking, a vehicle could be seen rushing on the street. The sound was too loud as the vehicle was speeding up. Seeing the vehicle, Mark shook his head. This guy took his time. After we let him go, it took him about 2 hours before returning. Gerger, don't compare them to you. May grabbed his arm. You have a dragon and the power to move fast and become invisible. Just being able to return here alone is good already. I guess that's true. Let's find a place to eat first or the soup will get cold. Mark turned towards the vehicle that was about to vanish from his sight. Since the enemies started to get cautious, it was already time for Phase 2. Day 52 to 8:42 a.m. Government officials' residences, North District, Bay City Settlement, Pasay City, Metro Manila. Just what is happening this time? Senator Estrada slammed his palms on the table. Right now, all the members that schemed for the military to fail the NAIA mission were gathered once more. They were supposed to celebrate the current rise of their manpower and influence in Bay City, but what was happening was the complete opposite. 5 teams were already gone from their people and 2 of those teams were confirmed as dead already. It would be fine if they were just normal lackeys, but among those survivor teams were the strongest ones in their people. Senator Estrada, you should calm down, Raver said with a foul expression. Among those missing survivor teams, 2 belonged to him. The first team, Leo Troops, was already found dead. Yesterday, another team under him, Scorpio Troops, had gone missing. He was infuriated about what was happening. The members of both troops were his men even before the outbreak happened. He might be a business genius, but his current status was not reached cleanly. He hired people to harass and scare his competitors, which caused his fast rise in influence and power. When the outbreak started, those people continued to serve under him and some of them became powerful evolvers and mutators. Now, 1 team was found dead and 1 was missing. Who would not be infuriated? Among the people inside the usual room, 3 more people had unsightly faces, as the other 3 missing teams were among their men. They were Congressman Escobar, Senator Azucena and Senator Osmeña. What do all of you think? Congressman Escobar spoke. Among all the survivor teams that went out the past 3 days, only teams that belonged to our alliance had gone missing. There is no doubt that whatever is happening is directly aimed at us. And who would dare do that? Congressman Montesoro asked. Who else? It should be the military. Congressman Escobar replied with a grudging tone. Since our alliance is gaining momentum, they needed to weaken us. You already saw the pictures. The way they died is very unfit for the military, especially those under General Perez. That is the point there. Since they were killed brutally, the military will not be easily suspected. Think about it, it is the military who found the 2 confirmed cases. His words became more logical as the conversation deepened. Still, there was doubts, and without enough evidence, the assumption could not be confirmed. Just while everyone was immersed in the discussion, the doors were knocked heavily, which caused everyone in the room to enter a state of alert. Once the door was opened by one of the guards, a thin-looking man barged in, panting heavily and sweating profusely. Seeing the man, Senator Osmeña stood up. Freca, what happened? Why are you here? The retired senator obviously knew the man that came in, making everyone lower their alertness. However, they had a bad premonition about this. Sir, everyone, Freca tried to speak, but he was being short of breath. Calm down before telling us what is happening, Senator Estrada interjected with a frown. Yes, Freca, calm down first. Senator Osmeña also tried to pacify his subordinate. Unfortunately, it was not effective. Yes, sir. Everyone is dead. Phil, Arlen, everyone. Hearing that, everyone froze, especially Senator Osmeña. The people Freca was talking about were the retired senator's elite forces that he sent to investigate the first missing team from his men. Since there was already the suspicion that they were being targeted, she sent 3 teams along with his elites to investigate, which were about 100 people all in all. But for all of them to be dead with only Freca as the survivor was totally unbelievable. Tell me, are you sure? Are they really dead? The retired senator grabbed Freca on his shoulders and questioned him seriously. Sir, I know what I saw. Everyone was tied up while being eaten alive by the infected. I also saw the culprits. Hearing that, the ears of everyone in the room perked up. Speak. What did the culprits look like? How many are they? Raver could not help but raise his voice while asking. Sir Raver, I only saw 2 people. I can't see their faces because they were wearing hooded robes and masks. Only 2 people? That's total bullshit, Senator Estrada bellowed, as he was also there when Senator Osmeña sent them. Senator, I don't know how they did it, but I know what I saw. Why didn't you see what happened? Sir, I separated from everyone for a bit to attend by call of nature. When I returned, everyone is gone. When I searched for them, that was what I saw. Senator Estrada frowned and turned towards Devon. "We need your shadow people now. I only have 2 people available now since the others escorted the target away, remember." "It's fine. Call them out." Devon snapped his finger and 2 robed people appeared from the shadows. Aside from Senator Estrada's men, the other people in the room were surprised. However, there was someone who was more shocked than surprised. Freka stared at the robed figures with wide eyes. He stood up hysterically and shouted, "That robe! Those robes! FCK! You monsters killed them!" Freka without restraint charged towards the 2 robed figures as his teeth turned into fangs and his nails turned into claws. Day 52 to 8:51 a.m. Government officials' residences, North District, Bay City Settlement, Pasay City, Metro Manila. While the faction led by Senator Estrada was inside their meeting room, the room at the opposite building facing the meeting room had 2 people eating their bowl of rice soup. "They are too obvious. Well, I guess they can leave their windows open to keep the secrecy of their schemes. We can't see what is happening though." Mark was displeased as he could not directly see what was happening inside. In the least, he could use the emotions and mental fluctuations to monitor the events inside the meeting room to some extent. As for May, she could only eat her soup in silence. She had no idea what was happening inside the room on the opposite building. Mark turned his head towards the meeting room. "The show is starting." He sensed that the man they deliberately ignored as they posed as members of the organization entered the meeting room in panic. At this time, Mark's eyes turned red as he focused on the person who was exuding a natural aura of arrogance and confidence within the people inside the meeting room. For sure, it was the leader of the group inside. Mark then started to influence the subconscious of the man and bolstered the senator's urge to know what in the world was happening. At the same time, he also influenced the other people inside differently. As he succeeded, he sensed that the senator called upon their available shadow people as he sensed the 2 strange beings appearing inside the room. To get to the bottom of it all as fast as possible, the senator that was influenced by Mark decided to call the 2 shadow people despite the presence of the other people inside the meeting room. That was when he succeeded in the second phase. Since Mark deliberately wore the robes they took from the members of their organization back in NAIA, the survivor of the team that had just narrated the story had his rage flare up. The man activated his mutator abilities and transformed while charging towards the 2 shadow people at the same time. Oops. Mark scratched his head. Something wrong? That action of Mark made May ask what happened. The show ended already. It just took several seconds, how boring. Mark complained. The emotional fluctuations Mark could feel from the survivor vanished. On the other hand, one of the shadow people felt shocked at what had happened. Never mind. I achieved my goals already. Time for phase 3, let's go. Mark downed the contents of his bowl and urged May to go. The latter could only copy what Mark did with his food and grabbed his hand. The 2 then vanished from the building in a blink of an eye. Day 52 to 8:53 a.m. Meeting room, government officials' residences, North District, Bay City Settlement, Pasay City, Metro Manila. Estrada. What is the meaning of this? Senator Osmeña furiously shouted while looking at the decapitated body of Freka lying on the floor. No one was able to react when Freka suddenly charged forward with a very thick intent to kill aside from the targets of his attack. Due to suddenly feeling danger the moment they came out, one of the 2 robed figures counter-attacked by reflex and waved his hand towards Freka. With that counter-attack, the transformed mutator immediately had his head and body separated before falling onto the floor. The event happened too sudden, but the other people here were not stupid. Freka had just mentioned that the 2 people that annihilated his team that was sent to investigate were wearing hooded robes. Before he attacked, he also shouted about the robes the 2 people Senator Estrada called out. Although Freka attacked first, he was easily killed like swatting a fly, which also showed that just this 2 people could be enough to kill those 3 teams Senator Osmeña sent to investigate. Everyone in the room looked at Senator Estrada with distrustful eyes. You people continue the meeting. I just remember that I have something important to do. With Raver in the lead, one by one, other members of the faction left the meeting with different alibis. Of course, their acting was not good and their alibis could easily be seen through, but they did not care anymore. They just wanted to leave no matter what before everything was late. Without waiting for any reply from Senator Estrada, they scurried off with their guards out of the meeting room. The only one left was Senator Osmeña, who was glaring at Senator Estrada. I expect an explanation for this, you bastard. So much for an alliance. With those words, Senator Osmeña left without even recovering the body of his subordinate. Although he was infuriated, he also thought that if he continued to stay here, he would be next. Devon, what is the meaning of this? Senator Estrada turned his head to his guard with a heavy glare. With what just happened, it was very easy to assume the root of this. It could be that Devon moved behind his back and sent his men to kill those survivor teams. Senator, we have a deal here, remember? I work following the contract and our organization is the same. It could be that another branch is tasked with this. Or someone knew of our organization and was using us to sow discord in the alliance. Devon said grimly. If it was the latter case, then they had been played severely without them knowing. Now that distrust had been placed on the hearts of the leaders of the alliance, their alliance that had yet to take control of the power here in Bay City had already fallen. This only did not destroy the alliance but also disrupted the plans of the organization behind him. Devon turned towards the two hooded figures. Go investigate the root of this. The two hooded figures kneeled on one knee before vanishing into their shadows. With what happened, Devon was itching to punish whoever did this, but without any clue, he could only wait. ******* Day 52 to 9:32 a.m. Osmeña Residence, Government Officials Residences Southwest Building, North District, Bay City Settlement, Pasay City, Metro Manila. Sir, are you all right? His personal guard, Elisis Seguera, asked. Senator Osmeña sat on his chair inside his office bedroom. He was trying to calm himself down, but the impact of what happened, which kept revolving in his mind, was not making him any calmer. Damn that Estrada! How could he play us like this? He furiously slammed his fist on his table. In his view, it was very likely that since the alliance had started to rise due to the huge failure the military made, Senator Estrada decided to weaken the other members of the alliance to remain on top and gain the most power in the settlement. It was easy to have this conclusion given that Senator Estrada's thirst for power was too strong even before the outbreak. Then, Senator Osmeña froze. If that was really the case, he would not bring out his men that could be the main culprits. He finally calmed down. There should be more to this, Senator Osmeña murmured, Elisis. He turned to his guard. However, what he saw was his guard holding his throat, trying to prevent blood from spilling out from the slit on his neck. Elisis started to stagger backwards, slamming on the table and finally falling onto the bed. He tried to scream in pain, but only gurgling sounds came out as blood flooded his mouth. Senator Osmeña, on the other hand, could not bother anymore about his guard. He was staring at the two figures that suddenly appeared in his office bedroom. One was even holding the bloody black-colored dagger that was surely used to slit the throat of his guard. To think that I hesitated. Are you two sent by that bastard? He expected that the two who wore the same kind of robes the men of Senator Estrada had was actually sent by him, to his surprise. Nope. What's in your mind is right. Senator Estrada is not the one behind the killings of your subordinates and the other survivor teams under your alliance. The man spoke nonchalantly. He was even shrugging his shoulders. What? Then, who are you people? Why are you doing this? Senator Osmeña tried to probe while his hand was moving to grab something from his waist. Finally managed to get hold of the thing, he immediately pointed it to the assailants. It was a Desert Eagle 1191 semi-automatic pistol. With this, his confidence was raised as he glared at the two assailants. Tell me, why are you two doing this? The male did not seem to mind the gun being pointed at him and was just looking at the retired senator as if he was an idiot. When the gun was pointed at the female, however. Clack. Ting. Ting. The man vanished, and the next thing that the retired senator was holding a disassembled gun that had its parts fallen onto the floor. Bam! Bam! Sir, what is happening there? The guards outside finally arrived as they heard the commotion inside the room. They started knocking heavily on the door. What are you shouting there behind the door? Get inside already! Senator Osmania shouted. However, the one that answered him was the voice of the male assailant in the room. No one will be able to enter. Senator Osmina stared at the man that was now standing beside the door wide-eyed. He could not hear his guards outside anymore, and all he could see was the blood seeping onto the gap below the door. What? He was horrified. I have a question. The male assailant spoke. Do you know anything about Ouroboros? Ouroboros, a portmanteau of the words Aura and Ouroboros. It was the name of the international underground organization that had influence in almost every country in the world. That was the same organization that founded Death Valley Settlement in Quezon and the ones standing behind Senator Estrada. Ouroboros, you mean that organization? I don't know anything. No. By your reaction, you have dealings with them before. But you're not lying. What a blunder. The male assailant sighed while the retired senator felt relief. He was not lying at all and knew nothing. There was a deal between him and that organization before, but it was all done through a middleman. However, the next words of the assailant made retired Senator Osmania horrified. In any case, you have to die. Why? I told you I know nothing. That's not the reason I'm going to kill you though? The male assailant pointed at his partner, making the retired senator turn towards her. His eyes turned wide as the female assailant removed the hood and mask that covered her head and face. Why you? That familiar face known by everyone in Bay City. You should be dead already. Don't curse her like that. The male assailant walked towards him. She's just abducted, remember? But of course, that is different from what your alliance planned. You all wanted her dead. Well, she's alive and will continue living. As for you guys who plotted on her and your arrogant but useless subordinates, you all will die instead. The man touched the retired senator's neck and he felt something entering his body. Terrified, he tried to resist, only finding that he could barely move his body at all. As seconds passed, he started to lose the ability to move even his toe. He felt weakened and his body felt heavy and his head started to feel dizzy. His whole body felt painful every time he tried to move, as if his body was being torn from inside. The assailant finally removed his hand and the senator's body that could not move fell on the floor in the same position. That caused the still-living senator to feel pain that was more than equivalent of all the pain he felt in his whole life. I turned half of your blood into metal, blocking half your blood vessels to limit the blood flow in your body. You will die suffering for a while. Well, if you wanted to die already, just force your body to move so you will tear your blood vessels inside your body and cause internal bleeding. In any case, no one can save you. The assailant kneeled and whispered unto the retired senator's ears. He then stood up and made his way to Mei Xiao, and the two vanished from the room as if they were never there. It took a half-day's time and shocking news shook the entire Bay City. Retired Senator Osmania and all his men were massacred inside his residences. Fortunately, his family members were fine and were just confined inside one of the rooms. All everyone knew was that the massacre was caused by two people wearing hooded robes. Day 53 to 12:11 p.m. Guevara Residence, Residences VIP Lounge, Government Officials East Building, North District, Bay City Settlement, Pasay City, Metro Manila. It was currently lunchtime in the Guevara residence. Instead of having lunch with his family, however, he was together with Congressman Escobar, despite the fact that he was not really in a very good relation with him. Another one together with the two was Congressman Santiago, the last person among the leaders of their alliance with Senator Estrada. Things are getting worse, Raver said with a frown. Even though there was higher-class food in front of them, they started more than 10 minutes ago. The three did not even touch their spoons yet. Yesterday, retired Senator Osmania and all the survivor teams under him were all killed. Osmania was found dead inside his residence along with his dead guards and confined family members, while the teams under him were found dead inside their residences. From what happened yesterday, there was only one person that they could suspect about what happened, and that was Senator Estrada. Not only that the assailants were robed people who was very likely to be the same people Senator Estrada called out yesterday, but since there was not a single trace of trespassing on the residence and it was as if the assailants vanished into shadows, the descriptions totally fit with the senator's men. Now, they could not help but fear for their lives and started to question what the hell was in their minds when they joined the alliance. Where are Azucena and Monterroso? They're late. Congressman Escobar ignored what Raver said and voiced his own question with a displeased expression. Although it was really not the fault of the two, the stress getting on his nerves made Senator Escobar even more irritable than normal. It's better if you two relax first. We won't come into a conclusion if the two of you were swayed by your emotions. Congressman Santiago tried to pacify the two, even though in fact, he was also stressed out himself. With the exception of the dead Senator Osmeña and the primary suspect, Senator Estrada, Raver invited the rest of the leaders of the alliance to come up with a plan or solution against the horrifying things happening to them. Aside from Senator Osmeña's death yesterday, all of them also received news about the deaths of several teams under their command. Because of the several cases of missing survivor teams that had gone missing and were found dead these past days, the other survivor teams, whether contracted or not within the settlement, became afraid of going out. Many started to petition that the military should find the root of this mess, but of course, there were no leads so far. The only witness that saw the culprits so far was even killed by Senator Estrada's men. Now, they fear that it was really Senator Estrada's work. While the three were racking their brains for anything that could possibly save them from this mess, the door into Raver's dining room was barged open. The three could not help but almost jump out of their seats, and their guards posed ready to fight but felt relieved when they saw Senator Azucena that rushed in. However, his face was pale and he was panting. It seemed that he rushed here in a hurry with his guards behind him. Not only that, but his guards were doubled in number. Senator Azucena, what is happening with you? Also, where is Senator Monterroso? He and his family live next to your residence, right? Congressman Escobar asked with a frown. He was obviously expecting a bad news but asked nevertheless. There, Senator Azucena looked at Congressman Escobar with a look filled with horror. Monterroso, he's dead. Also, no one was spared from his residence. His guards and even his two sons were found dead. With the declaration of the horrifying news, the atmosphere inside the room turned colder. The second person from their alliance had fallen. How did he die? Did the military know of this already? Congressman Santiago asked. They are already investigating the scene. All I know is that his daughters-in-law and his wife that went out this morning returned after an hour and found the scene already like that. They immediately informed the military since one of daughter-in-law had a relative in the military. Senator Azucena, who was wobbly, approached the table and sat down as he replied. How did Senator Monterroso die? Is it the same way as Senator Osmeña? Raver asked. However, Senator Azucena shook his head with a grim face. I saw his body. Rather than being killed, it is more like he was diced and grilled. Only his head that had that terrifying look on his face is left whole. His whole body is unrecognizable. Hearing that, Raver and the two congressmen turned to look at their food. It was grilled and diced meat. The three pushed away their food as their appetite turned upside down. Although it was meat from a mutated animal, which was a luxury in the settlement, they could not help but picture it as what Senator Azucena had just described. What are we going to do now? We will be next for sure. Senator Santiago voiced out with a grim face. Two of them had already fallen. Whether it was Senator Estrada that did it or not, they were surely in danger. Should we ask the military for help? Raver suggested. And what? Confess everything? Congressman Escobar scowled. Why don't you try to suggest something if you are not satisfied with mine? Congressman Escobar grew silent. In fact, he could not think of anything to suggest. Let's go with Raver's suggestion. Congressman Santiago chimed in, which made everyone in the room to turn to him. We can just say that Senator Estrada forced us to join him. Also, it is true that we didn't have anything to do with his plans since it came from himself and the ones that enacted the plans were his men. Hearing that, the other three was convinced. They decided to leave lunch and contact the military as soon as possible. After the dining room was emptied, two human silhouettes appeared out of nowhere and turned into black mist that flew out of the window and towards the rooftop of the building. Day 53 to 1:16 p.m. Rooftop, government officials' residences, North District, Bay City Settlement, Pasay City, Metro Manila. There they go, Mark said as he watched several vehicles leave the residences. Inside the vehicles were the members of Senator Estrada's alliance and their guards. Is it really fine to let them contact the military? May asked. It's fine. Just let them feel a bit of security. Then we will strike when they thought that they are already safe. Okay. May nodded. Well, we're going to take the rest of the day to prepare. Mark said while stretching his arms and back. What he had just said made May tilt her head confused. To her cute head tilt, Mark caressed her head and spoke. You heard them right? They will put all the blame on Estrada. For sure, the military will confront him and it will turn into a bloody fight since the guy will obviously resist. We don't know how many people from that organization were still present here in the settlement since they are very hard to detect, but for sure, they are all powerful. Normal soldiers won't be able to defeat them. I see. May nodded. When the soldiers were pushed back into a corner, we will show ourselves, right? Yep. Mark smiled. Let's get the military into debt. That way, we can get more things from them with little opposition, especially their top secret research. Gerger is so sly. It is against my principles to steal from allies, so we just need a way to make them unable to decline if we asked. Mark shrugged his shoulders and smiled sinisterly. Besides, it might be the plan of that alliance to deal with you, but the military also had some responsibility since they failed to protect you. Gerger, are you angry again? Your premonition did not happen and I'm still here. I know. But you know? The feeling of having that premonition is similar to watching you and everyone die without being able to do anything. After I woke up, rather than waking up from a nightmare, it is more like returning to the past to make things right. That is why even though the things happened differently, the bad feeling is still there. It's fine. Feeling the boiling anger inside Mark, who rarely showed emotions, May hugged him tightly, trying to calm him down. Mark looked at May. I've decided. If you became a mutator, what ability do you want? May knew about the psi crystal and the physical crystals already. That was why she was really thinking seriously about what she wanted. How about the ability to fly? Something like wings. That way, I can support Gerger wherever and I can escape easily if needed. She asked, which made Mark scratch his head. That's hard, I only have two that can allow flight and both have bat-like wings. Mark was troubled. I prefer for you to have a dove's or a swan's if you wanted wings. What Mark was talking about was the black dragonification mutation that he got from the leader of Death Valley Settlement, Adric Volkov. The second was a newer one, Batwings mutation. With a single thought, two physical crystals appeared in his hand. I really want to save this one for something else, but if you want it, I'll give it to you. Mark pointed at the black dragonification physical crystal and told May what it was. As for this one, I got it from something you're familiar with. Remember the leader type, infected with bat wings? That guy's intelligence is rather high, so I managed to get his mutation? Mark said while he played with the other crystal. It was back then in the flyover outside NAIA when he killed the flying infected before he approached May. Aside from the crystal, there was also something else that he got from that infected. I'm not really picky, this will do. May smiled and picked up the crystal with Batwings mutation. Seeing her contented smile, Mark shrugged his shoulders. How about I grow the same kind of wings? May was surprised at what he said. Is it possible? At that question, Mark took out a plastic medicine bottle from his bag that was securely wrapped with soft cloth. When the cap of the bottle was removed, the stench of blood seeped out of the bottle. Others can't, but I can. May's eyes lit up and grabbed Mark's arm like a kid begging to be brought to an amusement park. Then, let's go. Gerger and I will have the same pair of wings. Seeing her childish expression, Mark's anger from before was suddenly flushed out and his smile turned gentle. That smile made May even more delighted. All right. Let's return to the church first. I'll have you use that crystal. You also have that crystal inside the bottle, right? Mark asked, which May pulled out the bottle from her shirt that was tied up into a necklace that she was wearing. It was the only crystal that was not in Mark's possession after he became a mutator. It was the most precious crystal for Freed, as it was the psychic ability that came from his sister. Now, Mark decided that May would have it along with that pair of bat wings. With things decided, Mark and May vanished from the rooftop. Asterisk asterisk asterisk, the clock started to tick faster. The political alliance was totally broken and the other members decided to side with the military. A confrontation that would dictate the fate of Bay City was bound to happen. Fortunately, Mark decided to prepare, as it was not only the forces currently inside Bay City would be present at that time. Day 53 to 10:22 p.m. Baclaran Church, Redemptorist Road, Bacalaran, Parañaque, Metro Manila. Mark watched May face with a gentle expression while he caressed her hair with his hand. Right after they watched the leaders of the Alliance leave their residence building, Mark and May stopped by the Team Fairies residence and secretly picked up the three girls and Amihan. As for Odalina, she had to stay back in order to hide the fact that Iola and Abigail was not there. After picking the girls up, they all returned to Baclaran Church in order to prepare. Upon their return, Colleen was delighted to meet Iola and Abigail. Together with Miracle and the other blood children, they started playing. As it looked like, Colleen's childish trait made it easier for her to interact with children. While the girls played inside the church, Mark brought May into one of the rooms inside the church where they slept in the past few days. There, Mark made May consume both crystals at the same time and helped her with the pain she felt during her mutation. It had been several hours since then and it was very likely that May would not wake up anytime soon. In the least, her condition had already stabilized. Since it was the case, he decided to start his own preparation. He moved into another room and took out the plastic medicine bottle that he had shown May before, which contained blood. This blood came from that leader type, infected with bat wings, that May had confronted before. With this blood, he would be able to gain the same kind of mutation the source of the blood had. It was his newest ability that came in collateral at that time. He was possessed by the deity of bloodshed. The ability that came from the physical crystal he consumed at that time. He thought that it was a mutation that could turn people into a chimera-like creature, as he saw from the lackey of the cougar in Death Valley settlement. When he consumed it, however, he learned that it was far more than that. It was not a mutation to turn someone into a chimera, but a mutation that allowed someone to fuse genes or DNA into his body and receive the mutation that gene had. The ability of this mutation was rather overpowered in his view that he could not help but curse in shock at that time. This ability was what he called gene fusion, an ability that totally complemented his blood conversion, as he could absorb and convert blood of others into his. It was easier for him to fuse others' genes onto his body. However, it came with a setback. This mutation cannot be controlled easily. If he carelessly absorbed just anyone's and anything's blood, he could turn into a monster in no time at all. Due to that, he was avoiding absorbing blood of others as much as possible since he gained this mutation. The least he could do during time he was sucking blood and turning them into metal was to not include the white blood cells and other cells in the blood that could contain DNA, and just focused on absorbing those that surely did not. Another setback was that the fusion was extremely painful. This time, he was going to undergo gene fusion for the first time, and it was to acquire that bat wings mutation. Without further ado, he let out a blood whip and made it absorb the blood inside the bottle. After the bottle was emptied, he closed his eyes and prepared for the next thing that would happen. Ugh! Mark grit his teeth, trying not to make a single loud sound. Unlike the physical crystals, That would fuse the mutation contained within directly to the person's body, which only caused pain during the change. What Mark was undergoing right now was a full genetic mutation. If it were to be described in a vague sense, the crystals would change the current genes of the user into the same mutated genes. It was more like the crystal was cultivating their genes to be capable of having that mutation. On the other hand, gene fusion was making two genes fuse with one another. The already mutated gene was being fused into his genes, changing its very structure. Because of that, however, the process was severely shortened compared to using crystals and actual mutation after a person was bitten by the infected. It might be painful, but because of the fusion, the compatibility of his body to the new mutation he would get would be as high as possible. Due to the high compatibility, it would be easier for him to use the ability than actual mutators. While the others were oblivious to the pain Mark was undergoing, the blood children could sense it. It did not take long and they entered the room with Miracle in the lead. They surrounded him in total worry, but they decided not to approach and touch him as his body was totally sensitive at this moment. 3 hours passed and Mark was finally able to breathe calmly. His body was drenched in sweat and he was feeling quite numb, but the pain was over. The blood children were finally able to approach him. "Is Papa okay?" "Still painful?" Miracle, who already adapted her older sister's address to their adoptive father, asked with a worried expression. Mark patted her head and before patting the other blood children, "I'm fine already." Of course, they did not believe him. This was the setback of having a mental connection with them. It would not be easy to fool these children. "Papa, lying is bad." "Ha ha." Mark laughed it off. "I'm all right, really. My back is just a little numb." Finally, Mark stood up from his position. With the blood children in tow, he entered the room where May was left unconscious. May was still asleep when he entered. He wiped off the sweat from his body, changed clothes and lay down on the bed beside her. He was feeling sleepy after the tiring pain he had undergone. As he tried to sleep, Miracle and the other blood children surrounded him and also shut down their senses. With the Alpha and Amy around, there would be no actual danger that would go to them in this church. They could take a good sleep without worries. While he was sleeping, however, two little silhouettes entered the room. The two looked displeased and forced their little bodies into the bed. Luckily, the bed could still accommodate the two. When morning came, Mark woke up with a whole mess on the bed. May also regained consciousness just before Mark was able to fix the mess. ******* Day 54 to 10:32 a.m. General's Office, North District, Bay City Settlement, Pasay City, Metro Manila. "General, when are we going to make a move about this?" Major Lopez asked the general with a furious expression. The higher officials of the military in Bay City were called into a meeting this time. Their topic in this meeting was the sudden news that arrived to them yesterday. The news contained the existence of the alliance, the power behind Senator Estrada, and the scheme that caused Mei Xiao's disappearance. This alliance was not all new in the military's perspective, as it was obvious in the first place. The secret meetings, the secured meeting room and some other things were too obvious to escape the eyes of the military in this settlement. What made the officials shocked was the possibility of a strong power backing the senator and the scheme that led the military to lose a lot of people, prestige and the supposed assassination of Mei Xiao. Unexpectedly, all these things were disclosed by the actual members of that alliance that decided to turn over to the military because of the threat to their lives. This was not all false, as two of their members were already killed in just 2 days. "I know," General Perez replied with a stern expression. "However, we are soldiers and we have our SOPs. We can't just storm there without proper planning and preparations." "Well, that is true." Hearing that, Major Lopez backed down. "But we shouldn't make it long. The rumors are running about already." Those words of the major made the officials in the room shake their heads. The former members of the alliance led by Senator Estrada were surely using them as a shield. They did not only inform the military about those things but also anonymously spread rumors about the news across the settlement. Because the news was too crucial and had something to do with what happened in NAIA, it spread like wildfire overnight. Just this morning, the military already received petitions for a faster investigation about the matter. Due to this, the military would surely be forced to make a move as the pigs planned. There is nothing we can do but delay it a bit. General Perez sighed. The previous event in NAIA pushed us to another lack of manpower. If there is really a large power supporting Estrada from behind, we really can't take the matters lightly. Day 54 to 11:13 a.m. Estrada Residence, Government Officials Residences, North District, Bay City Settlement, Pasay City, Metro Manila. Bam! Senator Estrada slammed his fists on the table in total anger. "Those traitors!" he roared. "What are you going to do now, Senator?" Devon spoke in a mocking tone. "The whole settlement is condemning you now. So much for raising your influence over the people of this settlement." Hearing those words made the senator glare at Devon, but he did not say anything back. "I already told you before that they might stab us in the back." Tisk. "But is it my fault that they turned their backs towards us?" "Maybe not, but that did not really matter now." Devon moved to sat on an empty chair instead of standing behind the senator. "Where are those bastards now?" Senator Estrada asked. "They seem to be relocated in a secure area. The two shadow people under me cannot enter the place at all. If they did, it was really likely for them to be discovered." "Where are they relocated?" "Somewhere inside the laboratories. You know that place is the most secure place here. The hallways are painted white and the lights are always open. My shadow people had no place to hide there." "Damn it." The senator cursed once again. He could not wait to tear those traitors into pieces. He was really furious. All the things he worked towards were gone in an instant. With the rumors of his scheme flying around from one mouth to another, the prestige he tried to build up crumbled within a single night. Even if the investigation went in favor of him, there was no way for the things he lost to return. This time, Devon spoke. "The deaths of those two had nothing to do with this, which meant that there is someone pulling the strings behind everyone. Now, it is inevitable that we will have to clash with the military if we wanted to rule this settlement. We don't have any other choice, do we? For sure, the military won't make a move immediately." Devon smiled sinisterly, which also made the senator shiver. "We can choose that free time to prepare against them. Also, in the meantime, I'll inform all our men in this settlement and those that are staying outside." "How long do you think before the military make their move?" "According to their standard operating procedures, they will finish the initial investigations first towards the deaths of those two. They will appear before us in another day or two. The longest will be 3. Then call upon all your men. If they started to investigate me, it will only pretense, but it is very likely that they will try to get rid of me." Hearing that command, Devon smiled. "About calling everyone, it doesn't matter. I'll tell you something. Several people from our headquarters will pay a visit here in the next days. Let's see if the military will be able to do anything." Day 54 to 3:42 p.m. General's Office, North District, Bay City Settlement, Pasay City, Metro Manila. Inside the office, General Miguel Perez were together with his children, Rafael, Gabriel and Angeline, future daughter-in-law, Teresa Cruz, and the two females entitled as the female devils in the settlement, the mother and daughter Alicia May and Paula May Clarence. Normally, the statements of the members of the alliance led by Senator Estrada would be questionable. Both fortunately and unfortunately, however, the presence of Alicia and Paula during their statements had proven that they were not lying. Because of that, the military had to take their statements with all seriousness. This time, General Perez took everyone here in his office for a serious discussion. "I want all of you to be cautious for the next few days." General Miguel Perez spoke. "Dad, is it because of Senator Estrada?" First Lieutenant Rafael asked. "That is right." The general sighed. "We had just confirmed that the ones backing him came from Ouroboros." Ouroboros, it was an underground organization that had activities around the world, though most of these activities were crime-related. There were even instances that their organization was confirmed to be funding terrorist groups and criminal syndicates. There was not much known about this organization aside from a story where the organization was eradicated before. Unfortunately, like one of the words that made up the name of their organization, Ouroboros, their end was just another beginning. The next time their organization appeared after the fall, they already had influence in different parts of the world. The worst thing, however, there were rumors that a lot of members of this organization were not human at all. There was no confirmation to this as their organization was too slippery for the authorities of different countries, but this rumor was still being believed by a lot of people that knew about their organization or had dealings with them. Now, that very same organization was standing behind Senator Estrada, and that was a total bad news for the military in Bay City. Also, before they lost communication with the port of Real Settlement in Real Quezon, they received the report of a crime settlement called Death Valley. The worst thing about that report was that the so-called crime settlement was led by and founded by the international drug lord, Adric Volkov. From the international secret reports the general knew, there was an assumption that Adric Volkov had connections with Ouroboros. Ouroboros being active in the Philippines this time was not a good sign. Starting with the plan to kill Mei Xiao while thinning their manpower, and to how Senator Estrada tried to raise his influence in Bay City after that, it was safe to assume that Ouroboros would want to take control of Bay City while staying in the dark. Normally, the military had high chance to thwart Senator Estrada's plans, but with the performance of the robed people that abducted Mei Xiao, the chance for the military to fail was raised. We are currently preparing to confront Senator Estrada, and it will be finished by tomorrow. During that time, Angeline, Paula, Gabriel, and also you, Alicia, all of you will be put in the maximum security area in the laboratory. Raphael, you and your squad will be tasked of guarding everyone. There will be other elite squad that will be present there, but their duty is to protect our scientists and their families. Dad, for you to arrange all that, would something huge happen? Gabriel asked. The possibility is high. General Perez nodded. Although their camp made it as discreet as possible, they seemed to be gathering their forces into a single area. Senator Estrada also left his residence and stayed in a rented warehouse yesterday. The very same place where their forces are gathered. Dad, can't we help you? Especially me, I'm a mutator now. Angeline chimed in. Angeline, I appreciate the offer, but no, our enemies this time were not the mindless infected but actual intelligent people. Since the general, led this whole settlement, it will be likely for them to target you instead to get hold of me. In the first place, the reason you became a mutator is still questionable. You kids shouldn't give the general more headaches and just follow his instructions. Alicia spoke. He is doing his best for everyone. Don't try to hold him back. Hearing that, the three children of General Perez went silent. Although it is true, they found it hard to accept. What about you, Dad? Angeline asked. Don't worry, I won't be put in danger just because of this. I'm the leader of the settlement, so my soldiers won't try to put me in front. While they were discussing inside the room, the door was knocked. Enter. General Perez allowed the person knocking to enter, and it was a soldier. The soldier saluted and spoke. Sir, sorry for the intrusion in your meeting with your family, but we have an urgent matter. What is it? General Perez frowned. He hoped that it was not bad news. We have re-established connection with the military settlement in Quezon. We had General Faustino on the other line, and he is requesting for you. Is that so? The general sighed in relief. He panned his eyes to everyone inside the room. Just go, Dad, we can continue this later. Angeline pushed her father out of the room with a bitter smile. Day 54 to 4:02 p.m. Military Communications Headquarters, North District, Bay City Settlement, Pasay City, Metro Manila. General Perez hurriedly made his way towards the communications room, which was quite a distance from his office. This is Bay City Officer in Charge General Miguel Perez. Miguel, it's been a while. Yes, it's been a while, General Faustino. Is what you had just told my men true? All of it is true. The two generals spoke about the recent events in both settlements. Since the two was close, being a mentor and student before, the two spoke casually rather than using military communication protocols. General Perez was surprised to hear that Death Valley settlement was no more. By the way, Miguel, have you already received the reports we sent? This question from General Faustino made General Perez totally confused. What reports? About the berserk liquid and regeneration medicine. We asked someone to deliver that there. Wait. General Faustino, no one arrived here to deliver such things. Who did you ask to send the reports to us? General Perez was totally bewildered. Not because he did not receive such reports, but there was actually someone that General Faustino trusted that could deliver the reports from Quezon to Bay City. Not only the distance was too far, but the cities that were needed to be traversed were brimming with infected. His question was immediately answered and his eyes had gone wide. Not only was he surprised about the person tasked with the delivery, but with this information, the general managed to deduce the possibilities and missing links in the current situation in Bay City at the moment. Since the start, not only him but many noticed the inconsistencies in the current events. But if someone else was here pulling the strings, the inconsistencies was finally answered and the holes were filled. Hearing the information made General Perez cut the communication short. We need to get to the bottom of this fast. Day 54 to 4:23 p.m. North District, Bay City Settlement, Pasay City, Metro Manila. This is troublesome. Mark rubbed his temples. The communication with the settlement in Quezon being fixed came in unnecessarily and in a bad timing. Now, the military is acting rather strange. There were even soldiers sent to look for him. What a blunder. I just wish my plans won't get disrupted with this mess. I will ask for an additional payment from that old man once we get back. They won't find us though, it's just wasted effort. May spoke beside him. Right now, the two were hidden using optical camouflage, while flying above the settlement. The two held hands while a pair of bat-like wings was present of both of their backs. They were currently practicing to fly using their wings. Mark had no problem getting used to it because of this body's adaptability, but May had to practice longer before being able to take flight. Well, if they did not find us, they will still be forced to confront Estrada by tomorrow. The populace is already pressuring them. Mark turned to May. It's kind of amazing how you managed to get the hearts of too many people. Being complimented like that made May blush. She did not care about the other people's feelings about her, but a single compliment from Mark could make her a bit fidgety. I didn't do anything aside from work. Well, that is the privilege of someone beautiful and talented. May blushed even further. Let's return to Odal first. Mark decided to change the topic or May might overheat. We still need to cure Laylaps and help Fine. Okay. With that, the two flapped their wings and flew back to the residence where Odalina was together with the three girls. It was still a secret to his friends that he was here, and thus, he was relying on Odalina for many things. He asked her to move Laylaps and Fine to be moved into her room so Mark could work on them when he and May returned. This way, the others would still not notice the existence of Mark and May. Mark had no plans to involve his daughters or even Odalina in the upcoming battle. That was why he did not work on increasing their strength for now. Instead, he planned to cure Laylaps and Fine to increase the security of the residence. In the worst case, he would make Chaflar pick them up and send them to the church where they would be safe. While flying around the settlement, Mark and May also observed the movements of the people under Senator Estrada, and he already confirmed that the senator and the people of Ouroboros were planning to take over Bay City by force. Letting these guys conquer Bay City, however, would be a very bad thing. Day 54 to 8:42 p.m. South China Sea. Normally, the sky would be clear of any aircraft after the outbreak started. This time, however, a V-22 Osprey could be seen traversing the sky over the sea. An American multi-mission, tilt-rotor military aircraft was quite a sight even before the apocalypse, but it was amazing that it was able to traverse the sky right now over the sea without getting into an encounter with flying evolved animals and infected capable of flight. Strange enough, the aircraft was flying towards Metro Manila and would arrive in a few hours at most. It was unknown where it came from, but it was obvious that even though the model of the aircraft was of American military origins, the people on board the aircraft were nothing like soldiers. There was not even a single sign that they belonged to the US military at all. The common trait among the majority of the people inside was that they were wearing strange-looking robes. While on flight, the people aboard were spending their time talking in order to not get bored. "Dop, we are going to such small country. I doubt that what the superiors said is true." A young man who seemed to be just 15 spoke with a carefree attitude. "Flam, what are you taking about? I'm one of those superiors that you are trying to badmouth." Dop glared at Flam. His expression was rather sinister. As for the others, they were keeping their mouths shut. Unlike Flam that was close to Dop, who was their superior and the currently leader of this mission, they were just insignificant ants. "We received a signal from Devon asking for assistance. Luckily, it also coincides with our other missions." Dop spoke nonchalantly. "I'm quite surprised though." Flam spoke with great interest. "Too many things happened in this country that the headquarters had to dispatch us personally. I just wish that whoever our target right now can entertain us." Day 55 to 9:41 a.m. North District, Bay City Settlement, Pasay City, Metro Manila. Bay City was getting restless since last night. Soldiers could be seen moving about and preparing for something, but it was not a horde of infected or evolved animals. They were preparing for a confrontation with Senator Estrada's camp. Normally, they would just round up a number of soldiers and apprehend the senator for the alleged crime, but they could not do it now. Furthermore, the soldiers in the settlement were in heightened alert. It was because something they did not expect. In the span of one night, the military lost control of the southwest area in the South District of Bay City. The southwest area of the South District was a walled area designated for planned factories and warehouses, in short, an industrial area. Although there were already buildings in the area, it was far from being fully completed. During the day, the place was occupied by workers while it was being guarded 24/7 by the military. The development of this area was crucial for the future of the settlement. Last night, however, Senator Estrada and his men made the preemptive strike. They took the military by surprise. With their people that were able to display might that was even more powerful than most mutators in the settlement, they were able to occupy the area in a short amount of time. Not to mention that they did it almost without noise. The tent city that was just a few hundred meters north of the industrial area did not even notice what was during the occupation and only noticed the disturbance after they heard loud noises that seemed to have come from some sort of aerial vehicle. Their purpose for this move was still not clear, but it already caused a large amount of disturbance in the settlement. There was something that made the military and the civilians even more concerned about the situation. It was because the soldiers designated to guard the place and the workers on duty last night was not seen anymore. It was not known whether they were still alive or not, as the senator's camp was not making any statements or demands. The military tried to communicate with anyone inside the walled industrial area, but there was no response at all. An infiltration team was also sent to at least scout what was happening inside the industrial area, but none of their members made it back to report. Right now, what the military wanted to know the most was the existence of the vehicle that landed inside the industrial area after it was occupied by Senator Estrada's camp. There were a lot of questions that needed answers, but no answers could be found without the cooperation of the other party. This situation started to drive the officers of the military into a corner. Not only the military but other political factions in Bay City found Senator Estrada's move alarming. It seemed that they were able to sniff the danger that Senator Estrada could bring and started to support the military whatever decision and move they chose. At the sky, a couple was flapping their bat-like wings while concealing themselves from the eyes of other people. Mark and May were also surprised at the current development. Since they were not around to observe the flow of things at night, they only knew of what happened after they returned this morning. The military should have made a move before this happened. May frowned as she complained. The military was late to do what they needed to, and it led to this situation. If they moved a day earlier, things would have been way easier. You can't blame them. Mark stared at the industrial area where he could see silhouettes of robed people moving about. The military is too cautious about Ouroboros and won't make move unless they are fully prepared. Humans are always afraid of the unknown. That is the bitter truth even in the ancient times of Earth. Not to mention that the military had to follow standard procedures. The military had to keep their face for the sake of the government. It made things worse though. We can't deny that. Still, it's not surprising. Whether it is the military or the police, they mostly respond to things late. Mark chuckled. That was an undeniable fact no matter how people might try to deny it. It might be different in other countries but it was a common thing here. Not only the military and the police but even rescue squads, ambulances and firefighters could be subjected to this. This kind of thing did not only happen in movies but also reality due to a lot of factors. Mark then turned his head towards the aircraft that was parked in a wide open area of the industrial area. He only had seen such aircraft in the movies, games and internet before. The Philippine military had no capability to afford such aircraft. In fact, the possibility of seeing this kind of aircraft in this country was very small. It made Mark come to a single conclusion. This vehicle came from overseas. Furthermore, to be able to travel in the air safely, the ones aboard that vehicle were no normal people. Gerger, you're interested in that aircraft, right? I can't say I'm not, but we can't approach that area for now. Those people from Ouroboros are not human at all. It is very likely for them to detect us since I'm using a psychic ability to conceal us. And even if I'm not, I don't want to risk it and destroy my plans. Then, how about getting it afterwards as our spoils? May suggested. I'm interested but we rather not. We don't have specialists to maintain that and the fuel it needed to fly would be a pain to gather. Let's just leave it to the military. If we needed to get something from these guys, their magical robes and strange weapons will do. Mark replied as his eyes landed on some of the hooded figures below that was holding strange-looking weapons. There were different kinds of weapons but all of the weapons were black-colored and seemed to have been made with the same kind of material. While looking at those weapons, Mark could not help but remember the bullets that managed to hit him even when he was using his shadow mist movement back in Death Valley Settlement. Those weapons and those bullets could be made with the same kind of metal. Mark was really eager to know that truth about it. While Mark and May were observing in the air, the first group of actors finally arrived. The main forces of the military finally arrived. Of course, there was no way for the military to mobilize their whole force while neglecting the safety of the settlement from the infected. Not to mention that there were still those that were injured because of what happened in NAIA. Right now, there were only about 2/3 of the available forces of the military here in this place. It amounted to about 2,000 people. Is it already many? In Mark's eyes, it would not be enough at all. Mark could tell that each and every single one of the robed figures inside the industrial area was either as strong as or even stronger than the leader of the people that tried to abduct May in NAIA. The energy their bodies were emanating told him so. If that was really the case, a single robed figure might be able to kill more than 100 people alone and might still not be killed at all. Not to mention that Mark found 3 people that was on a different lead compared to others. In Mark's estimate, each of these 3 individuals were dangerous and the danger they could bring was on par with the alpha infected Mark had aphelia control. If not, they might even be stronger. While Mark was thinking those, several individuals came out of an armored Humvee and walked towards the front line. Among these individuals, Mark could recognize 2 of them. One was Captain De La Rosa while the other was Major Lopez. Both of them were soldiers he met back in Queens Row Elementary School before it fell into the hands of the infected. Holding a megaphone, the show was started by General Perez. Senator Estrada. This is General Miguel Perez, please come out. The general shouted. Of course, this opening speech that was made as polite as possible was just included in their SOPs. It was like how a police should fire a warning shot first before actually shooting the suspect that tried to escape arrest. No one here expected that Senator Estrada would respond to the call. After the general shouted, everyone was already preparing to storm the industrial area. To everyone's surprise, the gates of the industrial area opened. There, 4 people stepped out of the gates up to a certain distance. The one that led the group was obviously Senator Estrada. Behind him was his known bodyguard, Devon, and two unidentifiable people that wore strange-looking robes. Even though more than 1,000 guns were pointed at them, the four did not show any tense action. Even the senator was totally relaxed and started to speak. "General, what could I do for you early this morning?" The senator spoke with total sarcasm. "Senator, don't try to turn things around. What is the meaning of your actions right now? You are yet to be sentenced for your malicious schemes, and now, you are actually doing a criminal act in the open." "Criminal act? What is it? Don't make me laugh," Senator Estrada mocked. The government had already fallen and the laws of the previous world are not applicable anymore. Now, it is the survival of the fittest and the stronger always win. The military is too weak to maintain this settlement. That is why I decided to call upon those that can. Are you talking about Ouroboros? Are you now wagging your tail towards them? No, they are only here to push me into leading the settlement. They will support me at the same time. That is why, you people in green uniforms are not needed anymore. Senator Estrada looked at the soldiers with a grim smile. "Why are you doing this?" This time, it was Major Lopez that asked. "Is there really a reason?" "Of course there is. Since the start, I wanted to rule a nation. A country. That is why I tried hard to work up from below. I did not try to seek for help from my family that is already a political dynasty. With my hard work, I will rise from a mayor to a governor, from a governor to a congressman, from a congressman to a senator. And finally, be a vice president and a president in the future. But what did I get? The politics is dirty and I had to dirty my hands several times just to maintain my position. Even my family tried to oppress me for achieving a lot without them benefiting from my achievements." Everyone went silent as they listened to Senator Estrada's speech. They all wanted to know the root of it all. "Now, where are all of them? My family all followed the president to the secret bunker and I'm left here in this rotting settlement full of imbeciles and incompetent people. No power to decide things and had to wait for the decision of those that were supposed to be lower than me just to get my share of food. Luxury? What luxury is that? I own nothing here. I have no power here. I have my subordinates, but that is far from enough. Since the world had already ended, my dream was already impossible to come true. In that case, there is still this settlement. I will lead it. A place only for everyone to follow me. That is why you soldiers of the old government are not needed here anymore." Day 54 to 10:03 a.m. Industrial Area, South District, Bay City Settlement, Parañaque City, Metro Manila. Senator Estrada's monologue continued. After telling everyone about his shattered dream and the oppression he had to undergo in order to continue his career as a politician, he moved on into his propaganda and why the military and the previous government was not necessary anymore. "Senator, whether it was your dream or not, you violated the law in the worst possible way. Let's say that you succeeded, what will you rule when there is no one to protect the citizens here? Not only you sabotaged the mission but caused the death of many people, soldiers and civilians. No one will follow you or your reign willingly. What is the point with that? You even tried to assassinate one of the benefactors of the settlement. Although you did not succeed, she was still taken. Do you know that just because of that, you gained the ire of the citizens? There is nothing that you will be able to rule because of those reasons. Furthermore, you think the citizens will accept a criminal? You should already stop this farce and accept your sentence. We got you and your men surrounded." General Perez tried to reason with the rebelling senator and persuade him to stop. Of course, it fell into deaf ears. General, it's too late already. Whether I will rule over this settlement or not, it is not for you dogs to decide. You think I'm afraid of your soldiers and guns? You might not believe me, but all of you are not enough to make me back down." By this point, the general was already starting to feel strange. It was really the weirdest point right now. Despite the 1,000 guns ready to shoot him at a moment's notice, the senator and the robed men around him were not fazed at all. ****** On the jib of one of the cranes inside the industrial area, Mark and May decided to sit down while dangling their feet down the ledge. The show had finally started and they still had to wait before joining the fray. "Gerger, that senator, you don't have to say it. Anyone can tell that his head is broken. He's too delusional that he started to think that his greed and ambition are innocent dreams. Mark sighed. Despite the current state of the senator, he could sympathize with him. These past days, Mark would also sneak into the military offices for information about Senator Estrada. It did not take too much effort since the general was also asking for the Military Intelligence Division to gather as much information about the senator. According to the records, the senator had a clean track from when he entered politics. Furthermore, he could be deemed as outstanding as the places he governed received good development during his terms. Things had changed, however, when he entered the House of Representatives as a congressman. As the information was not complete or due to the fact that most of the things that happened that time were hidden, it was missing from the information. The only thing that the military was sure of was that Senator Estrada changed after entering the Senate. In each of the election propagandas that Estrada made during elections, his motto included that he was a strong-minded and upright person. As written in the report and along with the statements of people that knew him at that time, it was true. Just how much hardship and oppression did the senator receive that it was enough to change him to what he was now? It was not easy to twist a mind of a strong-minded person after all. Gerger, I can also sympathize with him. Well, it's easy for us to do since we had a bit of the same circumstance with him except for having such an ambition. However, this sympathy is not enough for me to let him live. Mark glared at the senator and the three figures standing in front of the gates. Finally, Mark seemed to notice something. No wonder they are not afraid of the guns being aimed at them. Mark murmured. Why don't the soldiers just shoot them already? May was starting to get bored from listening to the drama below. It's because they are trained not to. Not only the soldiers but the police are the same. Whether it is a robbery holdup, hostage-taking or things like this, the soldiers won't shoot until negotiation falls through or they were ordered by the highest person in command that was present in the mission. If they did, they could be pressed with criminal charges. Mark then smiled mysteriously. Besides, even if the soldiers shoot now, it won't be the end of it. Why? Look there. Mark then pointed at a building inside the industrial area that could oversee the situation outside the gates. As she turned to see what Mark was pointing at, her eyes widened. She then turned her head several times, alternating her sight towards the situation outside the gate and inside that building. Gerger, that is. See why they are not afraid of guns? Hearing that, May could only nod as she stared back to that building Mark pointed. From the optical zoom ability in her eyes, she could clearly see the situation inside the top northwest room of the building. Inside, there were 4 people standing while watching the scene outside the gates. And those 4 people were the senator and the robed figures that should be standing outside the gates. Gerger, what is going on? Don't ask me, I don't know either. It was quite surprising to see another set of the very same people standing outside the gates in a completely different area. Furthermore, Mark was also almost fooled by it. From his observation, the senator and the 3 robed people beside him outside the gates looked genuine. From every physical aspect and even the aura and energy they had. It was very hard to notice. If not for the fact that Mark's emphatic ability detected the 4 inside the building, he would surely think that the 4 outside were the real ones. There was also another thing bothering Mark. One of the hooded men was irritatingly familiar. He could not tell why, but his blood was boiling stronger as he stared at that person longer. Calming himself down, Mark stared at the fake senator once more. The Ouroboros really had some unusual ways to deal with this situation. The fake senator and the fake robed men were surely human and not illusion. However, he could not fathom how that happened. While Mark was trying to rack his brains for any idea that could explain the existence of the fake senator, the negotiations below finally fell through. I apologize, Senator, but since you don't want to cooperate, we can only resort to this. General Perez raised his hand. With that raised hand, the safety of the guns the soldiers were holding was removed. Bang! 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 The command had been given as the general swung down his arm. Several gunshots sounded from different buildings outside the industrial area as the snipers that were already on position shot the senator and the robed men surrounding him. To every soldier's surprise, the senator and his men only stood there in front of the gate. Senator Estrada's wide eerie smile could even be seen before a bloody hole appeared on his head and his fell down. It was the same for the three robed men. They all fell down with a lot of holes on their bodies. As the four collapsed from the sniper shots, the soldiers on position in front started to move. Along with General Perez and the other officers, they approached to check the fallen bodies. On the other hand, the other soldiers moved in position to storm the industrial area to get rid of the remaining men under the senator and possibly rescue anyone captured that was still alive. The soldiers that was with the general and the officers surrounded the supposed dead bodies and checked them. That was when the shock of their lives happened. What in the world? General Perez lost his words. There were 4 dead bodies in front of the gates, but none of them were Senator Estrada. One of the bodies was wearing the same clothes as the senator that was speaking just earlier, but the person in no way resembled the senator. However, there was the very same eerie smile plastered on his face even though he was already dead. That was when Captain De La Rosa recognized the bodies after checking the faces of the 3 robed men. "Sir, what is it? These people, they are our soldiers that were missing after they occupied the area." "What?" Not only the general but the other officers were shocked. "Damn it!" General Perez cursed. "Men, commence assault. Leave no one alive." He then shouted, which signaled the start of the operation. The general's temper flared. This was the worst thing that could possibly happen to him and his men. To think that his soldiers were used like this and they were made to kill their own people. One by one, the soldiers stormed inside the gates of the area. They covered each other and were looking after each other's backs. They were all briefed about the enemies and the possibility that they were not human at all. Still, a lot of them were not convinced about this. After all, even for most of the soldiers here, it was the first time they heard of Ouroboros. Now, however, after witnessing the strange event just now, they were more convinced and were made to take the things they were told seriously. The moment they entered, however, there was no one in sight. It was as if the front of the industrial area was empty. Yet, the experienced ones among the soldiers started to feel the strange feeling of being watched with killing intent despite the fact that they could not see anything. ****. Men, beware of your surroundings. The enemies might be hiding and are waiting for ambush. Keen, the mutator son of Captain De La Rosa, who was one of the leaders of the advance squads, warned his men. Like other squads that entered the industrial area, they started to explore one of the buildings near the entrance. It was a wide warehouse that was one of the first buildings here that was already finished in construction. Strange enough, they did not encounter any single enemy until now. "Yes, sir." Upon entering one of the rooms in the warehouse 444, one of his men shouted in nervousness. "What is it? Sart. Private Sart is not with us." Hearing that, all of the members of the squad were surprised at the sudden development. "What?" Keen shouted as he hurried out of the room to see the situation outside but found no people. His squad members also hurried to follow him in high alert. "What the hell happened, sir? I don't know. Sart is just behind me before I entered the room, but he suddenly disappeared." ***T. Men. Let's go. We have to find him. Sir Keen, shouldn't we split up?" One of his soldiers suggested. "Don't be stupid. One of us went missing while all of us were together. Although I hope that it is not the case, but think like we are in a horror movie." It was an absurd reasoning, but they could not refute it. One of them had suddenly gone missing without any of them knowing. "Let's go. Proceed with caution. *****. Gerger. The soldiers are being picked one by one," May said with a frown as she watched the soldiers getting attacked stealthily in broad daylight. The warehouses and the buildings might be dark since there was no electricity, but also the soldiers that were outside the buildings were being attacked without them knowing how. "Should we give them a hand?" Mark suggested, which made May aim the silenced sniper rifle she was carrying. It was a confirmation that she wanted to help them a bit and he did not stop her. Gerger, just one shot is enough, right? I see what you are aiming for. Mark smiled. TSST. The sniper rifle was fired towards a secluded area where another squad was in position. Day 54 to 10:37 a.m. Industrial Area, South District, Bay City Settlement, Parañaque City, Metro Manila. Soldier after soldier, squad after squad, those that were tasked to enter the industrial area stormed through the gates. Those that were already inside immediately went to their designated positions and were all ready for confrontation. About a third of the forces the military deployed around the industrial area continued to enter the premises in formation, while the remaining would stay outside for several reasons. The industrial area was rather about just a little less than a fourth of the whole South. That might sound small compared to the size of the whole settlement, but all the soldiers here would not be enough to fill even half of the industrial area. However, they could not pour all their forces in carelessly. If they all stormed at the same time, not only that the entry would take a lot of time, but a single well-planned trap or ambush could severely damage their ranks or worse, wipe them all out. Not to mention what was currently happening inside, where some of the soldiers suddenly vanished into thin air. If only happened to one person, it could be that the person was lost due to the warehouses being filled with construction materials, making it look like a maze. But now, almost all of the teams that had already entered were experiencing such strange event. The soldiers started to form formations that would always keep each other on sight, but it was already late. They already lost one or two of their squad mates for who knows what reason. One of the squads that were tasked to position themselves in a rather secluded area inside near the gates, where they would serve as backup if something happened at the front lines. Unknown to them, they were the easiest target right now. While they were oblivious about what was about to happen to them. Pang! A metallic sound echoed behind one of their youngest soldiers, which made the soldier jump in fright and reflexively turn his head behind. The poor soldier received the greatest shock of his life. Far greater than the shock he received when he almost died several times during missions. Behind him, he saw a hooded figure half submerged in his shadow. What could be seen of the hooded figure was his head to his waist, while the remaining seemed to be inside the shadow of the young soldier. Unknown to the soldier, not only he was shocked by the sudden development. Even the hooded figure froze with his hands that were about to reach the soldier's mouth and grab him stretched out awkwardly. However, the shock of the hooded figure was not from the soldier, but because of the bullet that had just penetrated his head. Fortunately, he was a shadow person, and with their ethereal bodies, unless they wanted to touch something, almost everything would just phase through their semi-transparent bodies. Still, the bullet that should have penetrated his head left 2 holes on his hood. Finally, hooded figure regained his senses first and hurriedly tried to dive back into the shadow. When the hooded figure moved, however, the soldier panicked even more and started yelling and shooting, which startled his squad mates. Ah! Die! Die! The sounds of his gun that he had forgotten to equip his suppressor echoed badly, swallowing all the sounds in the industrial area. Thanks to that, however, the members of his squad saw the hooded figure just in time before he dived back into the shadows. Unfortunately, the soldiers' gunshots did not kill the enemy. Immediately, what that squad saw spread among the soldiers through the radio. They started to get away from shaded areas and watched their shadows behind them. Asterisk asterisk. Boo, that's cheating. May grumbled with a pout when she saw that the bullet from that shot that she aimed at the head of the robed figure just passed through its body without actually doing damage. In the least, the soldiers already knew what was going on. On her side, Mark was not surprised about what happened. Those people that can enter shadows have no fixed physical body, so you should expect that. Gerger should have told me. May pouted even more. She was expecting that she would get the first kill. But why does it look like they were trying to capture the soldiers alive? Mark was also baffled. Since the start of all this, Mark had been watching. He woke up in the middle of the night after receiving the signal of the scout he sent during the time he was not in the settlement and watched everything happen. Since Senator Estrada left their hideout and occupied the industrial area, he was watching. He found it strange that even though he could tell that there were many enemies hiding near the entrance, they were actually not planning a trap or an ambush. Instead, they tried to abduct the soldiers one by one. I don't know exactly, but it looks like that they want them alive for another purpose. Mark then turned his head towards the outside where the bodies of the soldiers that posed as Senator Estrada and his men were still on the ground. It made him think. Maybe they want more puppets like those four. Or probably, they're preparing on sacrificing people for something. Hearing that, May frowned. It was not a good thing either way. She already saw the ritual conducted to contact the Great One where 3 innocent girls died. If they really were preparing to sacrifice that many people, their goal would be big. But Gerger, how are the soldiers going to retaliate if those shadow people can't get hurt by normal bullets? Just watch. Mark replied and pointed at a direction. There, 5 soldiers were already in formation as they ran towards another smaller building. As they ran, however, they spotted a strange silhouette by the shade of the building. The shadow could not easily be spotted in normal situations, but the soldiers were already informed about the enemies hiding in the shadows. Seeing that silhouette, one of the soldiers immediately aimed and fired his pistol. Bang! Grew a painful shout from a deep voice with an echo like nature was heard as the silhouette was forced off from the shade. That painful shout confirmed the existence of the enemy, and the soldier shot 2 more times at the staggering figure. Bang! Bang! There, the hooded figure collapsed on the ground. In the blink of an eye, the body's figure vanished, leaving its empty hood riddled with 3 gunshot holes. Seeing what happened there, Mark nodded. Gerger, what is that? May was confused by this. Well, you know that Colleen is the daughter of a major, right? Yes, I remember she said that. Back when we were confronted with the contaminated animals in the mountain, she seemed to have knowledge about miasma and paranormal stuff, so I asked her about it when we are on the way here. On Mark's question on Colleen, she said that her dead mother was a retired soldier from a special task force the military and the police had. Even though it was the modern times already, there were still instances that paranormal things would run amok and harming people. The existence of that special task force was solely for those matters. They were equipped with weapons that could harm paranormal entities, specifically, specialized bullets. The unfortunate thing that the manufacturing of that bullets was too small because there were not really that much mission that task force was called for. So they also have such things. Yeah, but as you see, there are 5 soldiers there, but only 1 seemed to be equipped with those. Actually, there's 2 there, but they tried to conserve the ammunition as much as possible. Then how am I going to fight them? May felt dejected. Wait. Mark smiled and called. Crimson. At his command, clumps of miasma appeared from underneath his feet and flew towards his hands. There, the reddish-black blood child materialized out of nowhere. Among the blood children, Crimson was the one he could rely the most right now, especially since the little critter had now had a body that could dematerialize and materialize at will. At his mist-like form, Crimson was almost undetectable and could even maneuver in the air without problem. Due to those abilities Crimson gained after he evolved, Mark sent him to stealthily guard Odalina and the others and also maintain an eye in the settlement when he was not here. Last night, Crimson was also the one reported the sudden event. Crimson. Help her a bit. Coat her bullets with miasma. Receiving the command, Crimson wobbled in confirmation and turned back into his mist form. Then, the clump of black miasma flew towards the muzzle of May's sniper rifle. Mayor, try shooting again. Okay. Without any question, May immediately went to find a good target below. She immediately spotted a strange shadow hiding at the shade of one of the hanging beams being used for construction. TSSST. Pang. GRAAH. The soldiers were surprised to suddenly hear another painful scream by the enemies when none of them actually shot at all. Another thing was that the scream seemed way more painful than before. They immediately charged towards the area where the scream was heard, but all they could see was an empty robe that had a hole on its hood. Gerger, it really works. May seemed to be delighted. Other people might be appalled from the scene though. After all, she had just ended a life and yet, she was delighted about it. To Mark it did not matter though, as long as she was happy. From that, May started shooting every shadow she noticed waiting for the soldiers. Of course, She did not shoot any that near the soldiers so she would not be noticed and only picked those that were in the isolated places. One shot, one kill. That was how she did it. The enemies did not even know what happened until they died. Of course, she could not spot all of the enemies hiding in the shadows, and it was Mark's duty to point where the enemies were lurking. Asterisk 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 inside the building that could oversee what was happening around the industrial area, 4 figures were watching the predicament of the soldiers. It was until a strange shot out of nowhere destroyed it. "Hey Dop. Our shadow people are getting decimated," Flam playfully said while gazing outside the window. There was no fear in his face that he would get shot by a sniper while gazing at the window. "Oh, they really won't rest." Flam smiled as he flicked the sniper bullet that was suspended in front of him. He then turned to Devon. "Devon, your psychic barrier is really reliable." The 4 of them were already spotted in the building and they received more than a dozen sniper bullets already. However, none of the bullets could enter the room at all and the 4 of them could watch the situation outside without worry. Gra-ahhhh. Flam had turned his head back to look outside when he saw a flash of bullet with a strange trajectory. The bullet then hit a shadow person which immediately materialized before dying. That death was too strange since the place where the shadow person was lurking was away from the sight of the snipers of the military, not to mention that it would be hard for the soldiers to confirm the existence of that shadow person just through the scope. Flam smiled with interest. He did not really care whether their men died or not. What he wanted was to have fun in this mission. Strange enough, he saw more of the shadow people die in the same manner. At that moment, however, he managed to trace where the shots were coming from. Day 54 to 10:51 a.m., Management Office Building, Industrial Area, South District, Bay City Settlement, Parañaque City, Metro Manila. "Hey Dop, we have some pests lurking outside. They seem to be helping the military. The shadow people we had are being taken out one after another." Flam called out in a playful manner as he gazed at the jib of the tower crane in the center of the industrial area. Although he could not see anyone on the jib of the crane, he could faintly see the very streaks created by the sniper bullets that were traveling in a very fast speed. All of those streaks appeared out of nowhere, which made him conclude that the enemies were most likely to be concealed in some way. Hearing those words, Senator Estrada was surprised. He had total trust with the abilities of these people, especially since they were not human at all. Although they were not omnipotent, humans and even most mutators were still weaker than a normal shadow person in this organization. The soldiers might be able to put up a good fight with their training and experience, but that was it. They would be wiped out after some time. On the other hand, Devon and Dop looked rather interested. To be able to take out their shadow people was already a feat for a human. Being able to kill their subordinates that belonged to other races were one thing, but to be able to kill the shadow people, it would surely be an interesting event. "Where are they?" Dop asked, which made Flam point his finger at the crane. Of course they all could not see anything. Although they could see the same streaks left by the fast-moving bullet, they could not see the source or hear the sound of the gun being shot. "It's a concealment psychic ability." Devon spoke. As he was also a psychic ability user, he could faintly detect it now that they managed to pinpoint the exact location where he needed to concentrate his senses. Dop, on the other hand, had his eyes change color. His light blue-colored eyes turned crimson. "There are 4 life signs there. It's hard to tell what they could be though." Now that it was really confirmed that there was someone there, Flam was getting agitated. "Hey Dop. Let me deal with those pests." Flam seemed to be itching for a good fight. "I don't mind if you want to deal with them, but don't forget why we are here." Dop agreed, but strictly reminded the easygoing guy. "Geez. I know. Just let me have some fun without thinking about these things. It's already driving me nuts." Without waiting for any reply, Flam charged out of the windows. This room was in the 3rd floor and normal people would likely get injuries jumping out of there. However, the moment gravity caught up to Flam, a burst of flames exploded under his feet, which sent him flying towards the direction he wanted to go. That guy. Dop watched Flam jump out of the window with exasperation. But he could only scratch his head under his hood. It was true, and their current mission was rather annoying, but they had no way to refuse it. Devon, you really have no idea. It's your men who had contact with the Great One for the last time. Dop turned to Devon and asked him the question that was already asked several times since they arrived. Although Devon already shared what he knew about the abduction of Mei Xiao and the ritual of blessings, there were still issues that had no answer. Apparently, there had been no further contact with the Great One since the mission was concluded. As one of the people at the top of the Ouroboros, the Great One would constantly contact the headquarters. He would also report things like this that changed the goals of the mission their subordinates were tasked with. Yet, the Great One failed his duty for the first time. This country sure is troublesome. Devon complained. First, we lost contact with that international drug lord, and then, the Great One. Now, you failed on penetrating this settlement from the shadows and needed to use force with our help. These things only happen in this country. We already got control of several settlements in other countries without problems aside from more difficult ones with secret backgrounds. Devon then walked and stood in front of the window. Now, tell me. What the hell is wrong here? This third-rate country should not be able to do much trouble to us. His voice was getting agitated. Like Flam, he really hated troublesome things that were no obvious answers. It was more like that these issues appeared to be coincidental. The biggest issue was their loss of communication with the Great One. Even the ritual of blessings have failed to open a portal to contact him. Without that, more than half of their operations in Southeast Asia were paralyzed. Sir Devon, I really have no idea. Devon was starting to sweat profusely. If he was asked of one thing that he did not want to happen, it was for this guy to become agitated. Dop might sound like a lame name, and his personality was nothing else but dandy, but he was one of the most influential figures in the organization. Not only that, he had private organizations around the world, the number of his men even outnumbered the main members of the organization. Furthermore, he was a powerful being. Ignoring Devon's silence, Dop called out. Shade. A robed shadow person emerged from the shadow behind him. How are the preparations? We still lacked 172 people to start the ritual. Then you stop trying to abduct the soldiers silently. Bring out everyone and use force. Yes, sir. Shade answered, but the shadow person did not leave immediately. Sir, I have something to report. What is it? One of our people found something odd at the church outside this settlement. Shade then proceeded with his report before vanishing into the shadows and followed Dop's instructions. A sylph, several strange creatures, an alpha infected, and 5 humans mingling together. How interesting. Dop's interest was piqued. Specifically because of the existence of the sylph that was a very elusive race of spirits. Devon, send someone to investigate. If we can get those creatures to our side, even if we fail the mission in this settlement, it will be worth it. Of course, Devon and Senator were displeased hearing that. This settlement was Devon's mission, and the Senator wanted to rule over it. If they failed, both of them would be bound to a large setback. However, yes, sir. Devon could only reply subserviently like that. Asterisk asterisk. Well, good. They really took the bait. Mark smiled, sensing that one of the most powerful figures emitted a powerful aura and his will to fight eagerly. He was rather surprised, though, as he saw the figure of the enemy flew of using combustions of flames underneath his feet. He had let Mei kill the enemies below with this intent, although he did not know whether it will work or not. He was not sure about the number of enemies that would come either. However, what he was sure was that these people from Ouroboros really liked to underestimate humans to the extent that they only see humans as tools and sacrifices. Mark and Mei stared at the figure that was charging towards them. The enemy was still covered with his hooded robe, but from observing his body shape, they could conclude that he seemed to be in an age that was between a high school student and an early college student. Aside from his lean body stature and hood, the thing that was the most eye-catching on the enemy was the sheathed sword on his back. The sword was oddly sized. The scabbard seemed to be 4 inches wide and the length was about a little less than 4 feet. The handle that could be seen above this shoulder seemed to be of medieval origin. Mei could not see anything else aside from that. Mark, however, whose body was fused with miasma, could tell something else. The sword was emanating a sinister aura that was no less than the deity of bloodshed Mark encountered before. The sword aside, Mark could tell that there were two consciousnesses that reside on the enemy's mind. One was active while the other seemed to be in complete isolation. As the enemy landed on the crane facing them, Mark cancelled the optical camouflage, revealing their figures. The enemy seemed surprised and scratched his head. Dop said that there's 4, I can only see 2 here. It was a rather childish demeanor, but Mark and May were not letting their guard down. Well, no matter. Hey, who are you two? Why are you wearing our organization's robes? The enemy questioned, but rather in a malicious behavior. It was nothing more than just pure interest. Give me a reason. Why should I answer that? Mark asked while he continued to size up the enemy. The enemy was confused. It should be the proper etiquette in a battle, right? Ah, right. I forgot I'm not in that era anymore. He then stared straight at Mark. Still, I can't just leave things hanging. I don't really have a name, but they call me Flam. Even if you two don't want to answer me, I can't just let you two die without me knowing at least your names. I'll just leave it for later then. When you two are at the verge of death. Finally, the enemy released malicious intent. It was no less than the animosity Mark felt from the deity of bloodshed. Another demon, Mark finally realized. It was not the human though, but the sword on his back. When Mark was just about to jump forward to fight, May spoke. Gerger, can you let me try alone first? You sure? Yes. May then put her sniper rifle on her back and took out a short-bladed katana, a wakizashi, Mark made for her. She held the wakizashi on her left hand and held a .45 caliber pistol on her right. Since May wanted to try to fight herself, Mark would just let her. In any case, Crimson was hiding behind her in his mist-like form while Amihan was hiding inside her robe. This was the reason the sounds of her sniper rifle could not be heard from below. Of course, he made the little sylph hide since her existence would likely be more of an easier target for the enemies once she was discovered. A sylph's stature might be too small of a target for ranged weapons, but just one lucky hit would kill her for the same reason. Unlike the shadow people that had ethereal bodies, Amihan's was a physical one. Hey, you two should come together. Flam was still underestimating the two for sure and tried to make them fight together, but he was not able to finish his words. Clang. At that moment, Flam became wide-eyed as he immediately defended himself. He felt an impact on his back as he shifted his body in order to use the sheath of his sword to block the attack. May, who was just in front of him, suddenly appeared behind his back and stabbed her sword towards his left shoulder bone, aiming for his heart. Missing the first attack, May shifted her sword and slashed horizontally, aiming for the nape of the enemy. Sensing the attack, Flam lowered his body, making the slash miss, and counterattacked with a foot sweep. May jumped to evade the sweep, but another attack came as Flam tried to grab her neck while she was midair. The hands of Flam could easily grab her in that condition, but her body vanished and appeared behind Flam once again and immediately attacked. This time, the attack was not with her sword but with her pistol. Bang! 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 Clang! 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 May shot in 3 different directions, but all were blocked with the metal scabbard of the sword on Flam's back. It was as if he had an eye behind him that was able to see the attacks and blocked them with great precision. Amihan already stopped muffling the sounds to hide her existence. It was this moment that the sounds of gunshots made alarmed almost everyone in the vicinity.